This is the story of a farm boy who, from a young age, showed a unique talent. At just 8 years old, he managed to take apart and put back together the delicate mechanism of a pocket watch and make it work perfectly. But life had a hard and challenging path in store for him. At the age of 12, Henry Ford was orphaned, and with no choice but to learn to survive on his own, he left his life on the farm. And at 16, armed with little education and an unwavering determination, he embarked on a journey to Detroit, where he would begin working as a laborer in a shipbuilding factory. But how did this young man, amid so many difficulties, build the largest automotive empire in the world? What led him to register more than 160 patents and revolutionize the way we live? Get ready, because next we will tell you how Henry Ford became one of the most influential men of the 20th century. The story of Henry Ford begins in the 1860s on a small farm in Dearborn, Michigan. The United States was far from the era of industrialization, and in those days, Ford's days were spent between farm chores and his experiments with any mechanical object he could get his hands on. His mother passed away when Henry was only 12 years old, and that event changed his life forever. It was then that he saw, for the first time, a steam engine. Although he didn't know it, this encounter would mark the beginning of his fascination with machines. At the age of 16, with the pain of loss and a deep desire to change his destiny, Ford left the farm and headed to Detroit. There he got a job at a shipbuilding company, where he worked as a mechanic's assistant. Here he began to learn about engines and how they worked, and that knowledge would be fundamental in his future. His skill led him to also work at the repairing and perfecting all kinds of steam machinery. By 1891, Ford was married and settled in Detroit. He got a job at where he quickly excelled and was promoted. With his first child on the way and his passion for engines growing, Ford decided to try to build his own car prototype. He began working in his small workshop, building a vehicle with bicycle wheels and a gasoline engine. Ford's first car barely reached a speed of 22 miles per hour, but it was a huge achievement, the first step towards his dream of bringing a car to every home. A year later, in 1900, Ford convinced some sponsors to found but the project didn't turn out as expected. At that time, people were not used to seeing cars on the streets. For many, the horse was still the only reliable means of transportation. Ford realized that he needed to show something more attractive, something that would pique people's interest. And so he decided to build a race car, a fast model that could capture the public's attention. He thought that maybe with a race car, people would see the potential of automobiles as the future of transportation. However, his sponsors did not share his enthusiasm for racing and soon abandoned him. But Ford did not give up. He himself took his car to the streets, demonstrating its power and capability, which quickly aroused the interest of new investors. This is how he founded in 1903. The birth of the Model T and the mass production revolution. Ford began working on a car that was affordable, functional, and reliable. And a year after founding his company, he launched his first commercial model, the Model A. Although initial sales were modest, the company began to gain ground. Ford had come this far without great luxuries, and it was not until then that he celebrated his success by buying his first suit and taking a picture with his son. However, his big dream was not yet a reality. Ford wanted to bring cars to everyone, not just the wealthy. So, in 1908, he introduced the model that would change the world, the Model T. This car was simple, lightweight, and easy to drive, with a much more affordable price than other cars of the time. Quickly, the Model T became a resounding success. But with the growth in demand, Ford faced a problem. Production was not fast enough to satisfy all its customers. Orders were coming in from everywhere, and his workers were overwhelmed. It was then that Henry Ford took a revolutionary step. Together with his engineers, he developed an assembly line production system. Until then, cars were built on workbenches, where each mechanic assembled the entire vehicle. Ford implemented a moving assembly line, where each worker was responsible for a specific part of the car. Thus, Model T production went from taking 12 hours to just 90 minutes. Thanks to mass production, the cost was reduced and the car became even more accessible. This decision not only changed the automotive industry, but revolutionized the production of goods worldwide. Ford showed that with ingenuity and determination, any obstacle could be overcome. the struggle to innovate, and the family legacy. As the years went by, Ford continued to innovate in its designs. However, competition was beginning to emerge. General Motors, its main rival, was already producing cars with more elegant and luxurious interiors. For Ford, cars were a tool to make everyday life easier, not a luxury. But his son Edsel, who was already part of the company, understood that times had changed and that customers wanted more than just utility. They were looking for style. Edsel convinced his father to include more spacious rear seats, suspension improvements, and a more comfortable and attractive design. Thus, the company began to improve its models and develop new vehicles, including the famous V8 engine, which offered greater power and speed. With this engine, Ford dominated the market. The cars could reach up to 87 miles per hour, were durable, and required less maintenance than the competition. Henry Ford had achieved his goal of putting a car in every home, and his company became the most important in the industry. The expansion and diversification of his empire. With the success of the Ford Motor Company, Henry Ford not only changed the way cars were made, but also used his fortune to expand his horizons. He acquired land, built an industrial complex called River Rouge, where the entire production process, from steel to the finished car, took place in one place. Ford also bought several newspapers and magazines, making sure he had a means to express his ideas and opinions. During World War II, his company contributed by manufacturing military vehicles and cargo planes for the US Army. Ford was not only a businessman, but also a symbol of patriotism and progress. The legacy of Henry Ford. Over the years, Henry Ford's vision and work left an indelible mark on history. From his childhood on a farm to the founding of an empire, Ford was an example that perseverance and passion can make the impossible possible. His legacy lives on today. The Ford Motor Company continues to be one of the most important automotive companies in the world, and its assembly line production system remains a pillar in modern manufacturing. If this story has inspired you, don't forget to subscribe and like this video. At Legendary Stories, we share stories that teach us the value of perseverance and innovation. Because in the end, the important thing is not only to achieve success, but to transform the world in the process. See you next time, and keep going with your dreams.